Hello and welcome to a new episode of Other Record Labels. I'm your host, Scott Orr. Thank you so much for tuning in, whereas we talk about the art and culture of running a record label. If you are in the early stages of starting a record label, then I have something for you. Go to otherrecordlabels.com/checklist, where I've put together a checklist that has 31 different tips that will kind of help you, check the boxes, so to speak, of things that you should make sure you have in line when you're going to launch your label and in the first couple weeks and months of running your record label. But let's talk today. You can get that at otherrecordlabels.com/checklist. Let's talk today about how to inspire your artists. And I think it's a very timely message because, the year we're in right now has been challenging, and there's been a lot of distractions and things that have made it hard for artists and creatives. Are such a unique breed. There's a lot of things that can pull them away from making music and being creative. And so I've always thought that our job as label owners and managers is to act as this conduit between the consumer and the creator, or the artist and the music lover. And we are this bridge. And there's the music fans who are saying, we'll take everything we can get from the artist. Please send us more music. And then the artists who are a little bit more intentional and protective of their catalog. And so we kind of act as that bridge and a spokesperson for both crowds. But we don't have as much intimate connection with the fans as we do directly with the artists and with the creatives. And so I think it's really, it's an advantage and a privilege that we have to work so closely with the creatives. But I think it's a responsibility that we have to make sure that we're always being encouraging and inspiring and stoking this flame. Because sometimes an artist is, to use a campfire analogy, because it's summertime, an artist is like this roaring fire that doesn't need anything. They're so motivated and encouraged and excited and inspired. But then other times it's like, just those coals, and you need to what's that thing where you pump air into it or fan it or stoke it or whatever, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of our job, is to know when an artist needs inspiration and encouragement. But I want to talk about 4 things that we can do that's a little bit more intentional and consistent, that will hopefully help our artists feel inspired and encouraged. And it's something I'm personally trying to get better at. So I'm speaking to myself as much as I'm speaking to anyone. But the first thing is to check in consistently. So this is like setting up like a weekly or monthly or whatever makes sense for you, time where you will check in with this artist. Maybe it's like a coffee you do once a month, or it's a phone call every Monday morning, or a group text that you do every week. But checking in, letting them know there's still somebody out there who's thinking about them. And again, what I'm talking about today, I think, is important, that happens outside of the album release cycle, because the album release cycle, is very obvious that you'd be touching base with them, that you'd be talking with them so much on a regular basis. But this is something when during the time when an artist should be writing for a record, or if they're on tour with a record, I think this is a really good opportunity to connect with them on a consistent basis, so that you're someone that they can rely on. And I know a lot of you already do this, and a lot of you do this daily. A lot of you text your artists daily or weekly, and I think that's amazing. But I think it's a good reminder to check in consistently, and it's good for you. Set a reminder on your phone every Monday morning to send messages to all of your artists, or one Monday a month is dedicated to a certain artist, however that works for you. The second thing is similar to that, but of a bit of a spin-off, and that's to encourage randomly. To send encouraging random emails with maybe quotes that you've read that inspire you, that you think would inspire them. Send them a gift or a book that you've read that inspired you, and now you want to share it with them. Speaking of which, I did this once with the book called The War of Art. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. This book has totally changed my life. I read it a couple years ago, and then I read it again, and then I gave it as a gift to one of my artists, and then I read all of the author's other books. But man, it is such, this is a tangent, but this book called The War of Art, I think the author is Steven Pressfield. It will really help creatives kind of get out of that rut, or to at least acknowledge that rut of how our inner artists will always like fight against us and resist us from being creative. And it talks a lot about that kind of the idea of the writer's block, and how maybe that's something that we can overcome. I found that so inspiring as an artist myself. And it's like a $10 or $15 book that you could mail to all of your artists, and it would have a huge impact. I mean, not only would the book inspire them, but the fact that you are randomly sending them a gift, telling them that you're thinking of them and hoping that they feel inspired. These are things that I think will make a huge impact. And a lot of these, aside from the book, can be free. You know, stuff like making a social media post celebrating their birthday, set reminders for that. Give them random shout outs on social media. That little one day thing out of nowhere. Of course, you're going to talk about their record on their release day or their release week or release month. But for you to do that like a year after they've had a record come out, like just this random post, I mean, I think that would be such a inspiring thing. I know for me, when people like share something of mine, like out of the blue, it just really kind of like pops me out of bed that day and sets me on the right track. So try to encourage randomly, feature their album on social media on its 1 year anniversary, or talk about what it meant to you. You know, I think I've talked about this before, but we had John Beeler from Asthmatic Kitty on the show a couple times. And I remember something he posted many years back, and he works Asthmatic Kitty and works with Sufjan Stevens. And he shared this essay on Facebook about 5 years after the day he first heard the Carey and Lowell record from Sufjan Stevens. And he shared about what it meant to hear that on the day that Sufjan emailed him a Dropbox link to it. And that behind the scenes intimate capture was something that he shared. And I know that a lot of people reading that were inspired. And I think that's something that you can do as well. You can talk about your experience as a label working with an artist and share that publicly. I think that could be really inspiring for the artist. The next thing is to inspire creativity. And by that, I mean to inspire them to make more music. Just encourage them to be prolific. Encourage them to keep writing when they should be writing for a record. Give them ideas for EPs. I mean, or special releases. You're in the industry. You have a finger on what's happening with singles or cover songs or Christmas songs or special EPs or compilations. You have these ideas. You see what other labels are doing. You can turn around and say to your artist and say, hey, why don't you do a split EP with another artist? Or why don't you cover this song? Or why don't we do a special release for this upcoming event? Do these little things to inspire creativity. I recently sent an email. I was completely ignored by my artist, but I sent an email to a couple artists and I said, hey, I have this idea because Bandcamp Day is coming up. And I said, I have this Zoom recorder that's really good. Why don't you take a couple of your songs, go out to the woods, go out to a trail or something, or the park. And this is when we were all in lockdown. And I was like, just play a couple of your songs on guitar or you know, lap steel or whatever it is, and record these like in a raw form in the woods with the birds chirping and everything. And then we'll chop it up and release it on Bandcamp Day. And nobody got back to me, or somebody got back to me and said they're too busy and whatever. That's just me. My artists, they don't like me. That's fine. But the point is that you're the one, it's your job to kind of come up with some of these ideas and inspire creativity. And we're not putting them in a box or anything, but what we're doing is we're just saying, here's a couple ideas I've seen been done before, and let them know that you're excited to work with them. And I think that those type of actions can really inspire creativity. And the final thing is obvious, and that's work for them. Do the work. Try to get extra coverage for their releases, their older releases. Try to get an older song added to a playlist. You can totally do that. That's easily done. You can go after sync licensing deals, which all of us work on to no avail. You can figure out more ways to exploit their masters. I mean, man, what a terrible term. I don't know what, definitely like some sort of executive in the 80s came up with that term, because that's such a brutal word. But what it means is that you have these 10 songs that an artist worked on they wrote for a year and recorded for a year, and the album's been out and it's just these 10 songs. And there's got to be more ways that we can make use of these songs, like putting them in soundtracks and getting them featured on playlists and taking the instrumental versions and releasing that. There's all these different things that we can do to work hard to take these songs and to help the artists generate more revenue and generate more opportunities. This is our job, is to take these songs not just on release day, but afterwards. And I think that you doing the work, sending your artists royalty reports, sending them checks, sending them emails that you've sent to various people, I find that will really inspire them. One of the things I try to do is, after I've done a blast for a release and I've sent to a bunch of promo things, I'll make a list of all the places I sent. And I know publicists who do this too will make a list of all the places that I sent their album to and send that to the artist so that they know that someone's in their corner and working for them. If the blogs don't write about them, that's another thing, but I think that they'll find it really encouraging that they have you on their team. Labels and label owners like us, we wear so many different hats. We wear the hat of an accountant. We wear the hat of a salesperson, sometimes of a janitor. But a lot of times we wear the hat of a coach or maybe a psychiatrist. But it's our job to try to be motivating, to step in and do things that are free, like encouraging and inspiring our artists. And there's times like the year that we're in right now where I think that's really important. And obviously we don't just do it when a new release is coming, but we do it randomly because it's an investment into the future. It's an investment into their creativity and into our label. So I hope you found that helpful. We've got a lot of resources at our website, otherrecordlabels.com. So make sure you head over there and check them out. If there are ways that you intentionally and consistently or randomly encourage your artists and inspire your artists, and you want to share them with me and with the audience, you can do that in our Facebook group, but also you can email me at podcast@otherrecordlabels.com. Thanks for listening.